I want you to take a second and just imagine a country that is practically vibrating with youth.
Right, a really young demographic.
Exactly. Picture a place where the median age is incredibly young. The streets are just, filled with dreamers, creators, hustlers, students.
That kind of demographic reality, it usually signals an upcoming economic boom. So you have this massive working age population ready to build, innovate, and essentially carry the older generations into the future.
Right. You imagine a country where the future rests entirely on all that energy.
Yeah.
A place driven by boundless potential and forward momentum. But then a shadow falls over that exact same image.
The energy shifts.
Yeah. It shifts from ambition and creation to, well, something much darker. Survival, fear. And that jarring contrast is what we are unpacking today.
It's a heavy shift.
It really is. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission today is to explore a profoundly distressing and complex narrative playing out right now in Kenya. We're pulling from a really sobering report. It's titled Kenya Under Siege, The Crisis of a Vanishing Generation.
And for anyone listening, it is crucial to understand why this specific situation matters to you, regardless of where you live.
Definitely.
Because this isn't just a story of localized tragedies. We are looking at a masterclass in what happens when intense economic pressure, systemic institutional failure, and the unfiltered digital age all just collide at the exact same time. It's basically a blueprint of societal stress.
Okay, let's unpack this, because right now, there is a very specific, really painful question dominating Kenyan social media, family WhatsApp groups, TV screens.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Everyone is asking, what is happening to our young generation?
Yeah.
The source material paints a picture of a country where fear has literally become the baseline. Parents are terrified to let their kids walk to the store. The community is suffering from this profound emotional exhaustion. And worst of all, well, the report notes that people are actually starting to lose their sense of shock.
Wow. And when the unthinkable becomes the expected, you are looking at a system in deep distress. The loss of shock it's a psychological defense mechanism. If you are constantly exposed to tragedy, your brain simply cannot maintain a state of high alert indefinitely.
It just shuts down.
And normalizes the horror just so you can get through the day.
We need to move from that heavy feeling of dread to the actual hard data that validates why people are so terrified.
Yeah.
Because the government released data just this month, May 2026.
And the numbers are staggering.
They are completely unreal. Over 10,500 child protection cases were recorded in just a 15-month window, from January 2025 to March 2026.
And within that 10,500, the breakdown is what truly illustrates the scale of this crisis.
Yeah, break that down for us.
So there are 1,636 missing children cases.
Oh my God.
There are 1,952 abductions. There are 173 trafficking incidents alongside thousands of abandonment cases.
That is, I can't even wrap my head around that.
According to the authorities, nearly 23 children disappear every single day in Kenya.
23 a day.
Almost one child an hour. And as of this report, over 2,300 remain completely unaccounted for.
To put this into perspective for you listening, I want you to think about those local neighborhood social media apps you probably have on your phone.
Oh yeah, like the ones for community updates.
Right. Usually you open them up and it's just a mix of the mundane, a lost golden retriever, someone complaining about a parked car blocking their driveway.
Or maybe a blurry Ring camera video of someone stealing a package.
Exactly. But I want you to imagine scrolling through that feed and sandwiched between a meme and a noise complaint is a missing child poster.
Man.
Then another one the next day. And another. Imagine the psychological toll of encountering a missing child poster every single day in the spaces where you digitally socialize.
What's fascinating here is how the internet has essentially been drafted into civic service. The source points out that platforms like Facebook, TikTok, WhatsApp, and X, they've become Kenya's unofficial emergency alert system.
Because the regular systems aren't working.
Exactly. Because the official state mechanisms aren't providing answers fast enough, or at all, really. So the digital public square has completely transformed into a crisis management hub.
That transition from social network to emergency broadcast system, it changes the entire fabric of how people interact online. You aren't logging on to connect with friends anymore. You are logging on to survival check your community.
Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does human anxiety. When official channels fail to provide swift answers, public fear fills that void instantly.
People take it into their own hands.
They have to. Citizens are forced to become their own investigators. They are crowdsourcing license plate numbers, tracking last known locations, sharing warnings about suspicious vehicles.
Which naturally leads to an atmosphere where no one feels safe walking down the street. But the danger isn't just lurking in the shadows or on a dark road. The source material highlights how this crisis is infiltrating the very places that are explicitly designed to be sanctuaries.
Right.
The places where you are supposed to be safe from all of this.
The schools.
Yes, the schools. Just this week, the country was shaken by a devastating dormitory fire at the Utumishi Girls Academy in Gilgil. The details in the report are just harrowing.
It's awful.
At least 16 students were killed, with dozens more injured. Survivors described scenes of absolute panic, girls jumping through windows in the middle of the night just to escape the flames.
You send your child to school, believing they are in a protected environment with adults whose sole job is their development and safety. And instead, it becomes a site of mass tragedy.
Wait, I have to challenge this framing a bit, just based on the report.
Okay, sure.
Because tragic school fires happen all over the world. Sometimes it's a horrific accident, a terrible electrical fault, or a localized safety oversight. Why is the source pointing to this specific fire as a symptom of a collapsing society, rather than just a horrific, isolated accident? Are we conflating a structural fire with the issue of abducted children?
It is a vital distinction to make, but the source explicitly groups them together because of the underlying mechanism.
Wow.
Systemic abandonment. The report states that this tragedy reopened painful national memories of past school fires that have repeatedly claimed young lives. This isn't an isolated incident.
Oh, so this is a known issue.
Yes. Historically in Kenya, we've seen a pattern where dormitories are heavily barred or locked from the outside at night. The intention might be security, keeping intruders out or keeping students from sneaking out.
But in a fire...
In the event of an emergency, those security measures turn the building into a trap.
So the argument is that the institutions are fundamentally unprepared for emergencies, and this is a historical issue that simply hasn't been fixed. The negligence is the connective tissue.
Yes, exactly. When a tragedy happens once, it's a disaster. When it becomes a repeating historical pattern, it points to a catastrophic failure of infrastructure, regulation, and oversight.
I see.
The vulnerability of a child waiting for a bus and the vulnerability of a child sleeping in an unregulated dormitory stem from the exact same root: a lack of protective infrastructure. And the report broadens the scope significantly here to show how this physical vulnerability is everywhere.
Yeah, it details floods, displacing children, and devastating families. It points to road accidents regularly claiming the lives of students and young workers due to poor traffic safety enforcement.
It's a constant threat.
It highlights rising violence in neighborhoods and an increasingly common, terrifying trend of femicide targeting young women.
You have young Kenyans growing up constantly exposed to physical threats from their environment, from the roads, from the weather, and from human predators.
To understand how the situation became this fragile, we have to look at the structural foundation. Why are so many vulnerable in the first place? What is the actual mechanism driving this?
You always have to follow the thread down to the root causes. And the most glaring root cause driving this mass vulnerability is severe economic pressure.
The report notes that government officials themselves have openly acknowledged poverty as a major force behind child vulnerability. But I want to unpack how that actually works.
It's not just a statistic.
Right. It's not just that being poor makes you sad. It fundamentally alters the logistics of a family. Food prices are remaining stubbornly high. Jobs are incredibly scarce. Young graduates are entering the workforce and finding absolutely nothing.
And this economic reality forces parents to spend significantly more time working, often in the informal economy, just to afford basic survival.
They're just hustling constantly.
They're taking on multiple gig jobs, traveling further for work, working longer hours.
Which means the children inevitably receive less supervision. It's a matter of hours in the day. If both parents are forced to hustle from dawn until dusk, kids are walking to school alone.
They are staying home alone.
They are navigating their neighborhoods without adult intervention. And predators and criminal elements, they're highly opportunistic. They look for that exact lack of supervision.
Furthermore, sheer economic hardship literally forces some young people into dangerous environments. A teenager might take an unregulated, risky job because the family desperately needs the income.
Wow, yeah.
The economic desperation erodes the protective buffer that financial stability usually provides a family.
If we look at the source material, economic desperation is only half of the structural equation here. The other half is the complete collapse of trust in authority.
This is a huge factor.
According to the 2026 Human Rights Reports cited in our material, police killings increased significantly in 2025. And the data indicates that this violence heavily affected youth and young men, particularly during protests and political unrest over those exact economic conditions we just talked about.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it explains the terrifying vacuum these young people are operating in. On one side, you have severe economic deprivation pushing youth into precarious situations. They are highly vulnerable. On the other side, the very institutions mandated to protect them, like the police force, are viewed with deep, documented distrust due to the violence detailed in those human rights reports.
So, a young person finds themselves in danger, or a family realizes their child hasn't come home. The traditional response in a functioning system is to immediately call the authorities.
Right, you dial for help.
But if your community's primary experience with authority involves violence or indifference, that call becomes fraught with anxiety, or it simply doesn't happen at all.
They feel entirely disconnected from state protection. As the source aptly puts it, when trust collapses, fear grows. The citizenry realizes they are essentially on their own.
That realization is a heavy burden. We've talked about the physical safety issues, the missing kids, the fires, the economic data. But underneath all of those tangible threats is a silent psychological weight crushing this generation.
A mental health crisis. It is the invisible toll of this entire situation.
The report lists the pressures, and stacking them up reveals a suffocating reality. Unemployment, the rising cost of living, family stress, intense academic pressure to succeed as the only way out.
An overwhelming uncertainty about the future.
For a huge portion of young Kenyans, the source notes that life doesn't feel like living anymore. It is purely survival mode.
They feel abandoned by the systems that promise them opportunity in exchange for hard work and education. When the social contract breaks down that visibly, the psychological fallout is immense.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, in a very tragic way. It's the paradox of the digital space in this crisis. Earlier, we established that social media is the youth's emergency alert system.
Right.
It's where they post the missing child flyers, coordinate search parties, warn each other about dangers. It is a vital tool for community defense.
But that utility comes at a devastating psychological cost. The report makes a profound point. A generation raised online is being traumatized online.
There is no boundary anymore. You wake up, you grab your phone, and your feed is just an avalanche of tragedy.
It's relentless.
You are looking at violence, outrage, public humiliation, funeral fundraisers, and missing posters before you've even had breakfast. The private mental space has been completely invaded by the collective grief of the nation.
I like to think of how the source describes the internet right now in Kenya. It has become an emotional mirror.
An emotional mirror. That perfectly captures the dynamic.
It isn't just displaying information. It is reflecting the psychological condition of the people using it.
And right now, that reflection is one of hopelessness, outrage, and deep public anxiety. We are seeing this anxiety manifest in very specific, chaotic ways online.
Yes.
The source mentions that the discourse has become so fearful that people are heavily speculating about ritual killings, shadowy trafficking syndicates,
or powerful criminal networks operating above the law orchestrating these disappearances.
Even if those massive, coordinated syndicate claims are unverified, they are spreading like wildfire across WhatsApp groups and TikTok.
The accuracy of those specific conspiracy theories is almost beside the point. Yeah. The sociological insight here is that these theories are a direct symptom of severe public anxiety. They are a coping mechanism.
That makes total sense, because the alternative is accepting that random, chaotic tragedy can just strike at any moment for mundane reasons, and no one is coming to help you.
Exactly.
That is a terrifying reality to process.
When the official truth is absent, and when justice doesn't come quickly, speculation rushes in to organize the chaos. A conspiracy theory, as dark and terrifying as it is, at least offers an explanation.
It gives the fear a shape.
It provides a villain. Believing in a shadowy syndicate is, ironically, more comforting than believing the system is just broken and indifferent. It reveals that public fear has reached critically dangerous levels where rationality is losing ground to panic.
Bringing this all together, Kenya isn't just facing one localized crisis. It's not just an economic downturn or a policing issue or a problem with school safety regulations. The source makes it clear that this is a massive multi-system collision.
A perfect storm.
Economic hardship, weak institutions, online trauma, and deep physical insecurity are all crashing into each other at the exact same time. And standing right at the center of that collision, taking the full force of the impact, are the young people.
They have inherited a staggering amount of pressure. They are navigating a landscape where the guardrails of society have essentially been removed.
But, and this is a crucial counter-narrative the report highlights right at the end, despite the fear, the missing posters, and the structural collapse, the resilience of these young people is astonishing.
It truly is.
They are still building businesses. They are still studying under immense pressure. They are creating art, supporting their families, and fighting to carve out a future. The source literally calls that resilience the country's greatest hope.
It is a remarkable testament to the human spirit. However, we have to be careful not to romanticize it.
That's a good point.
Resilience is beautiful, but resilience should not be a requirement for basic survival. A teenager shouldn't have to be resilient against the threat of abduction or a dormitory fire.
So what does this all mean? The report concludes with a very stark truth. A nation is ultimately judged by how it treats its children and its young people. If kids are disappearing daily, if students are dying in preventable fires, if the youth feel entirely hopeless and unprotected, the society has to look in the mirror and reckon with its priorities.
This raises an important question, and it's the one the source leaves us with. What kind of future are we actually building? When a generation inherits this much pressure, trauma, and uncertainty, what does the country look like when they finally take the reins?
That is the perfect pivot to the final thought I want to leave you with today. We've talked a lot about the digital space and its role in this crisis. I want you to really mull over this idea long after you finish listening.
Okay.
Think about this entire generation of young Kenyans, their primary safety net, their main grief counselor, their neighborhood watch, and their only reliable emergency alert system is an entirely unregulated digital space owned by private tech companies.
That is profound.
Consider the philosophical implications of that. When you are raised relying on a social media app to do the job of a government, to find the missing, to raise money for funerals, to warn of danger, how does that fundamentally rewire your understanding of what community and authority even mean?
You are looking at the privatization of civic infrastructure.
Exactly. When this generation becomes the adults in charge, how will they rebuild traditional government institutions they never trusted in the first place? Or will they bypass them entirely, relying on decentralized digital networks to run their society?
It's a huge question.
We started today by picturing a vibrant country full of young dreamers. The shadow over them is incredibly heavy, but those dreamers are still there, trying to navigate a world that has forced them to become their own protectors entirely too fast. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, look past the headlines, and we will catch you on the next one.